close your eyes for just a moment. Not literally, stay with me, but imagine this. What if the most dangerous prison you've ever lived in had no walls, no bars, no guards standing at the door? What if the thing keeping you trapped was invisible? There's a story most people never get told. It's not about money, it's not about talent, it's not even about luck. It's about 4 invisible forces operating inside you right now. Forces that are either working for you or silently working against you. And here's the part that changes everything. You were born with the ability to master all 4. Every relationship you've damaged, every dollar you've wasted, every night you've laid awake, mind racing, wondering why you can't seem to get ahead, it all traces back to these 4 forces going unmanaged. But I'm not here to tell you what you're doing wrong. I'm here to show you how to get it right. The man who had nothing and understood everything. Over 2,000 years ago, a child was born into chains. Not metaphorical chains, real ones. He didn't choose his family. He didn't choose his country. He didn't choose his name. From the moment he took his first breath, every external circumstance of his life was decided by someone else.
His name was Epictetus, and by every measure the world uses to define a person's worth, status, wealth, freedom, power, he had absolutely nothing. But inside that broken body, inside that enslaved life, something extraordinary was growing. A philosophy, a fire, a way of seeing the world that would outlive every emperor, every conqueror, every king who ever lived. He taught one idea that quietly changed civilization. The quality of your life is not determined by what happens to you. It is determined by what happens inside you. That idea didn't come from a palace. It didn't come from privilege or comfort or years of academic theory. It came from a man who had lost everything the world says matters and discovered the one thing that cannot be taken: inner mastery. Today, that wisdom belongs to you. The 4 forces that shape a life. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control things outside themselves: other people's opinions, the economy, the weather, the news cycle, while the 4 forces closest to them run completely unchecked. These 4 forces aren't complicated. You already know them intimately because you live with them every single day. They are your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. And together, they form the invisible architecture of your entire life experience. Let's go deep.
Force 1. The mouth, where your world begins. There's a moment most of us know well. You're in an argument. Your heart is pounding. Someone has pushed the exact button you didn't want pushed, and before your wisdom has any chance to catch up, words come flying out of your mouth that you'd give anything to take back. The room shifts. The damage is done. And in the silence that follows, you realize something quietly devastating. You just lost control of yourself. The mouth is not just a communication tool, it is a creative force. Every word you speak is either building a version of yourself you respect or quietly tearing that version down. Think about how you speak about yourself when things go wrong. Think about the words you use when someone disappoints you. Think about what comes out of your mouth under pressure, under fear, under exhaustion. Now ask yourself honestly, is that the language of someone I admire? Here's what makes this so powerful and so urgent. Words don't just express your reality, they create it. When you speak doubt over yourself consistently, your nervous system starts treating doubt as your natural state. When you speak blame over others consistently, your brain starts organizing the world around victimhood. When you speak harshly in moments of frustration, you train yourself to operate from the lowest version of your character. But the reverse is also true.
When you begin choosing words with intention instead of impulse, something almost miraculous begins to happen. People start leaning in when you speak. Conversations become richer, relationships deepen, and most importantly, you begin trusting yourself again. There's a simple discipline worth practicing. Before any emotionally charged conversation, before you respond to a message that triggered you, before you say something you might regret, pause. In that pause, ask 3 questions. Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Does it serve something greater than my immediate emotion? If the answer is no, silence becomes your most powerful response. This isn't weakness. This is the discipline of a person who has decided that their words are worth something. Because here's the truth most people discover too late. The people who change the world don't necessarily speak the most. They speak with the most intention. And when they do speak, people listen. Not because they're loud, but because every word they offer carries weight. Your mouth is the gateway between who you are inside and what you create in the world. Guard it, develop it, treat it like the sacred instrument it is.
Force 2. The mood, the weather you create. Let me ask you something personal. How many of your days have been hijacked? Someone says something cutting at breakfast. A driver cuts you off on the way to work. An email arrives with news you didn't want. And suddenly, the whole day is colored by it. You carry that gray cloud into every room, every conversation, every decision. By evening, you're exhausted, not from what you did, but from what you felt. This is the unchecked mood in action, and it is one of the most quietly devastating forces in human life. Here's what took me a long time to truly understand, and what changed everything when I finally did. Your mood is not something that happens to you. It is something you participate in creating. Between every event and your emotional response to that event, there exists a space. It may be microscopic. It may feel like it doesn't exist at all, but it is real. And inside that space lives something extraordinary: your ability to choose. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived unimaginable atrocities in World War II concentration camps, emerged from that experience with one central discovery: that even in conditions of absolute suffering, the one thing that could not be stripped from a human being was the freedom to choose their inner response.
If a man in a death camp could find that space, that sacred, sovereign pause, then you and I, in our daily frustrations, have no excuse not to find it. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions. Emotions are not your enemy. They are your information. Anger is telling you that something you value has been violated. Fear is telling you to pay careful attention. Sadness is honoring something precious you've lost. These signals are important, but they are not instructions. Your emotions do not get to make your decisions. That authority belongs to you. The practice is this: when a difficult emotion arises, instead of immediately acting from it, pause and name it. I'm feeling angry right now. Not I am angry, because you are not the emotion. You are the awareness observing it. That single shift from being your emotion to observing it is where your power lives. Over time, as you practice this, something beautiful happens. You stop dreading your own emotional experience. You stop avoiding difficult situations because you know you can navigate them. You become, quietly and steadily, the kind of person who can walk into chaos and bring calm with them. That is not a small thing. That is one of the rarest and most valuable qualities a human being can develop.
Force 3. The money, the mirror you carry. Money is not just a financial topic. It is a deeply psychological one. And most of us, if we're honest, have a complicated relationship with it. Not because we lack the intelligence to manage it, but because we've never been taught to understand what we're actually seeking when we spend it. Here's the question most people never ask themselves: what am I really buying? Not the item, not the product, but the feeling the purchase promises to deliver. Sometimes we spend to feel worthy, sometimes to feel exciting, sometimes to escape boredom, loneliness, or anxiety, sometimes to signal to the world or to ourselves that we've arrived somewhere. And the painful irony is that the moment the purchase is made, the feeling it promised evaporates, and the cycle begins again. This is not a character flaw. This is a deeply human pattern that becomes visible only when we're willing to look at it honestly. True money mastery isn't about deprivation. It's not about counting every cent with white-knuckle discipline.
It's about something far more fundamental.
Alignment. When your spending reflects your actual values, not the values you think you should have, not the image you're trying to maintain, but your genuine values, money stops being a source of stress and starts becoming a source of quiet power. Ask yourself, what do I genuinely care about? What creates lasting meaning and satisfaction in my life? And then look at where your money actually goes. The gap between those two things is where anxiety lives. Closing that gap is where freedom begins. Here's a practice worth starting today. For the next 30 days, after every significant purchase, write down one word describing how you feel 24 hours later. Not in the moment of buying, 24 hours later. What you'll discover will be more revealing than any financial spreadsheet. You'll begin to see your own patterns clearly, and clarity in this area of life is everything. Because when you manage money with intention, you don't just build savings, you build something deeper, the confidence that you can trust yourself. And that confidence bleeds into every other area of your life.
Force 4. The mind. The empire within. Of all the forces we're discussing today, this one is the most powerful and the most neglected. Right now, as you're absorbing these words, your mind is simultaneously running dozens of other programs, replaying a conversation from last week, rehearsing an interaction you're dreading next month, judging the pace of this material, planning what you'll do after this is over. Most people live their entire lives as passive observers of this mental noise, never realizing they have the authority to govern it. Your mind tells stories, constantly, about who you are, what you deserve, what's possible for you, what people think of you, what the future holds. And here's what's crucial to understand. Most of those stories are not the truth. They are interpretations, and you are the author of interpretations. Someone doesn't acknowledge you in a meeting. Your mind writes a story about being invisible or disrespected. You make a mistake at work, your mind writes a story about being fundamentally incompetent. A relationship ends, your mind writes a story about being fundamentally unlovable. But what if the story is wrong?
What if the person in the meeting was distracted by their own anxiety? What if the mistake at work was simply a lesson, not a verdict? What if the relationship ending was a redirection, not a rejection? The practice of mental mastery begins with learning to separate facts from interpretations. A fact is, the meeting happened and they didn't speak to me. An interpretation is, they don't respect me. A fact is, I made an error. An interpretation is, I am an error. When you train yourself to make this distinction, something liberating occurs. You realize that the majority of your suffering was never caused by what happened. It was caused by the story you chose to tell about what happened. And stories can be rewritten. This is not naive optimism. This is not pretending that pain isn't real or that problems don't exist. This is something far more rigorous. It is the disciplined practice of choosing the thought that moves you forward rather than the thought that keeps you frozen. You are thinking yourself into existence right now, in real time, every single day. The question worth living with is simply this: what kind of person am I thinking myself into becoming?
The ripple that changes everything. Here's what nobody tells you about inner work. It doesn't stay inside. When you begin mastering these 4 forces, even imperfectly, even inconsistently, the effects ripple outward in ways you cannot fully predict or plan. Your children watch how you handle frustration and learn that emotions can be navigated, not just suffered. Your colleagues experience your measured speech and begin trusting your judgment. Your friends feel the steadiness you've cultivated and lean on you in their hardest moments. The people in your orbit become calmer, clearer, more intentional because you became those things first. This is not an accident. This is how human influence actually works. Not through force, not through status, not through the size of your platform or the volume of your voice. Through the quality of your presence. One person who has genuinely mastered their inner world changes the energy of every room they walk into, every family they build, every team they lead, every stranger who crosses their path at the right moment. You may never know the full extent of the ripple you create, but it begins, and it can only begin, with the decision to master yourself.
Your moment of decision. We began this journey with a slave, a man who owned nothing, controlled nothing, was permitted nothing. And yet he became one of the most enduring voices on human freedom in the history of civilization. His secret was not circumstance. His secret was not luck or talent or divine favor. His secret was the radical, daily, unwavering decision to govern the one territory that was always his inner world. That territory is yours too. Right now, in the life you are actually living, with all its complications, disappointments, unfinished business, and beautiful unresolved potential, you have the same choice available to you that every great human being who ever lived eventually faced. Will I be driven by my life, or will I direct it? Will I be the victim of my words, my emotions, my spending patterns, my thoughts, or will I become their master? This is not a one-time decision. It is 1,000 small decisions made across thousands of ordinary moments that compound over time into an extraordinary life. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing.
Willing to pause before you speak. Willing to choose your response. Willing to align your money with your values. Willing to govern the stories your mind tells about who you are. Start with one. Master it even slightly. Then let that victory build the confidence to work on the next. The ancient teachers didn't promise this path would be easy. They promised something better, that it would be worth it. Your future self, the version of you that exists 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now, is being shaped right now by choices that may feel small in this moment, but are anything but. They are deciding everything. So begin. Not tomorrow, not when life gets easier or less complicated. Now. Because the greatest empire you will ever build is not one the world can see. It is the one that lives within you, and it is waiting. Every challenge I face is an opportunity to practice mastery. I am not at the mercy of my words, emotions, money, or thoughts. I am their author. And I choose, starting today, to write a life I'm proud of.